Two friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. Two friends just made a podcast. It's called Culture Bucket. Two friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. Two friends just made a podcast. Culture Bucket, Georgia and Alex.
Okay, hello, hi everyone, welcome back to Culture Bucket. After a short break, we're back with you with a very special episode number 37.
Yeah.
Another one of our deep dive, spoiler-filled reviews of a film. This week it is Sound of Metal, and here to discuss it with me is my co-host Alex. Hi, Alex.
Hi, George. Hi, everyone. I missed you, George. It's been ages.
Yeah, I missed you too. It's been a manic few weeks.
Yeah.
But it's good to be back.
It definitely is. Yeah. And I'm very happy. I forgot your face. It's a beautiful, beautiful face.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm not bad. I'm quite tired. It has been pretty busy, but I'm ready to roll. I'm freshly vaccinated against global virus things. So yeah, I'm good.
Good. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm vaccinated
so-
too. Woohoo.
oh, that's good.
Oh.
Life is good.
Oh.
So today we're going to be discussing Sound of Metal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did we choose this film to discuss, Alex?
Oh. I have no idea. I think you told me to watch it. I think it was not in the cards during award season. I think it was, kind of an award-winning, an award-nominated film. But I didn't know anything about it until you were like, watch Sound of Metal. And I thought, that sounds like a good plan.
Yep, so it's a film that came out and had a lot of buzz around it and was nominated for a variety of awards, including, I think, 6 Oscars. And it won 2 Oscars. It won Best Film Editing and Best Sound Design, I think that award's called now. But was also nominated for an acting nod towards Riz Ahmed, and also I think it was nominated for Best Picture and a couple of other things. So yeah, it seemed like quite a big film. And then key for us is it is streaming on Amazon Prime as an Amazon original film, so makes it something that we can both watch, which is great.
Yay.
Unlike some of the other big award season movies, like quick culture catch up, I saw The Father yesterday.
Ah, the one with Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Yes, the one with Sir Anthony Hopkins, who took home the Best Actor award for that film. That movie's amazing.
Did he deserve
he
best
did.
acting?
Yes, yeah. It's crazy, and he's on screen for like the entire film pretty much, and he really does take you on a journey.
Who was nominated? So there was Anthony.
It was Anthony, Chadwick. Very, sad, bittersweet awards there. I think Riz Ahmed. And let me try and remember who else, or let me look up who else, and then I'll tell you. Riz Ahmed in this film, Chadwick Boseman in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Gary Oldman in Mank, and Stephen Yeun in Minari.
Okay. So. And you've seen 3 of the films? 2?
No, actually, I've seen 2 of them. I've seen Sound of Metal and The Father.
So you think that Anthony Hopkins' performance was better than Riz Ahmed's?
I don't know. That's the problem with the Oscars and things like this. Is rather than looking at it as a competition necessarily and saying who was better than who else, I think that Anthony Hopkins is
2015 of me. I'm so sorry.
No, I don't know, because you're right. It is a competition, isn't it? And they are competing for the award. But ultimately, like they
Everybody's a
probably
winner.
all are deserving of being given the Oscar, but like Anthony Hopkins definitely, like it's probably about as good as he's ever been in his career, and he is one of our best living actors. It would have been really nice if Chadwick Boseman could have taken it home as his posthumous, award and all of these other things. Stephen Yeun, if he'd won, he'd have been the first person of Korean heritage, I think, to win the award. Because I think he's one of him and Yoon Yoo-jung, who was also in the same film as Stephen Yeun, she won Best Supporting Actress.
Okay.
And I
Good.
think that made history, that win. So there's certainly, it depends on how you want to argue it and discuss it in terms of whether Anthony Hopkins was the most deserving winner of the award. But he certainly, The Father is a film that people should check out, but it is quite heavy going. But we're not here to talk about The Father. We're here to talk about Sound of Metal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to start by going through the sort of plot summary of the movie, discussing the various beats of the plot. And we're going to have a little chat about the performances, including Riz Ahmed. And finishing with our sort of thoughts, summing up how we feel about the movie overall, and then any trivia we'd like to share.
Good plan.
Good. So let's start with the summary. So Sound of Metal is a film about, primarily about, it's sort of a character piece, really focusing in on a character called Ruben, played by Riz Ahmed, who is in a metal, a metal duo called Blackgammon, with a singer who is also his girlfriend Lou, played by Olivia Cook. The movie opens with them performing a concert, a metal gig, and you can immediately see that they're the sort of metal band who have like quite a dedicated following, but are also quite small and not necessarily hugely successful. They're not Slipknot, for example.
No, they're not.
But they do seem pretty good. That you only get a very small amount of their music in the movie, really. Yeah. But it's definitely something that I could see myself listening to personally. I'm a fan of louder music, and it seems quite good, which is cool. Riz Ahmed has clearly put a lot of effort into learning the drums because he's pretty... Well, I'm not a professional drummer, actually, so I can't speak too much, but he looks like he knows what he's doing.
But yeah, it looked professional. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so it shows them having this performance, and then it shows them going back to the RV they live in, which is this kind of big, classic American mobile home thing that's all... it looks really cool, actually. It's like curved. It's not like a box seat RV. It's like all curved. Looks like a big air raid shelter on wheels kind of thing. It's definitely, if I was going to live in an RV, it would be the one I would choose to live in, I reckon.
Definitely. I think it was the most, we talked about No Man Land the last time, and she had like this tiny van, but I think I definitely would live in that RV.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Her van is nothing compared to the RV from Sound of Metal, I think. She
that
might
looked like
have had
a
much
tiny
more
apartment,
comfortable life.
which is like, definitely live there.
Yeah, like this RV, there's room in it to set up a drum kit, so it's definitely pretty big.
And a mixing table.
Yep, a mixing table, a drum kit, a whole load of things. And then it shows them doing that, and then it shows them waking up in the morning, and it shows their morning routine. And this is where the sound editing starts to like really come into the film, I think, because you really hear all of the elements around Ruben as he makes the breakfast. He's sort of the drip of the coffee percolator, the whir of the blender that he makes the smoothie in, and all these noises around him as he goes about getting ready for his day, and then makes breakfast for him and his girlfriend Lou. And then they go and they play another concert, and the movie very quickly kind of jumps into the meat of what the film's going to be about, because during this concert, he starts to lose his hearing. Is it during the concert that's the first happens to him? I think it is.
Yeah. Something like that.
And he starts to lose his hearing, and then he wakes up the next morning, and he's making the breakfast again.
The next morning, he kind of realizes that it's kind of more...
Yeah, he can't hear the dripping of the coffee pot or the whirring of the smoothie maker and all these things. Yeah. So he goes to a pharmacist, and this scene made me feel physically tense. Like I had a physical reaction to this scene where he's in the pharmacy, and you start this thing that the movie does a lot of, like it will show when the camera is kind of close in on him, you're seeing the world around him from his perspective, and you're hearing what he is hearing. So in this scene, you can see that this pharmacist is on the phone, but you can't hear anything that's being said to him.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to a wider shot, and the sound returns to kind of what we would consider normal. And you can hear that the pharmacist is saying, no, he can't even hear what I'm saying now, and etc. And he sends him to his doctor. And have you ever had any sort of run-ins with hearing issues, Alex?
Yeah, I have. Do you remember? Remember when deaf from one ear?
Yeah.
Yeah. In Japan, I had a really bad ear infection, and I went deaf for maybe a month or so, or two, like quite a long time, because I had to take lots of stuff, and it's like just not having hearing from one ear is pretty chaotic and terrible, because you like one ear is compensating, and so you hear everything really loudly, and it's very confusing and it's horrible. Have you ever been deaf?
Yeah, so in I think it was probably 2017, I can't remember why, but I started getting, because I go to a lot of concerts and gigs and, you know, loud places, similar to Ruben, I suppose, but not professionally in the same way. And I was starting to get quite worried about, I was going to concerts, and then the next morning I'd wake up and have a ringing in my ears, like tinnitus essentially, and started getting more and more nervous, because obviously once you get tinnitus kind of, and it's there fully, it can't really be healed. It doesn't go away. It's sort of a permanent condition. Yeah. So I was getting quite nervous about that. So I started deciding I should go to concerts with earplugs in, and I had two, you know, these deaf sound reducing ones that are supposed to, you can still hear the concert, but it's just not quite as loud, and it won't damage your hearing in maybe the same way it normally would. So I had two big concerts coming up. I was seeing Green Day, and then I think the next day or a couple of days later, I was seeing Radiohead. Two bands that I like quite a lot. And I was like, they're going to be quite loud, especially the Green Day one. So I want to prepare myself. So I ordered some this is about 2 weeks before the gigs. I ordered some noise reduction earplugs off Amazon. And I put them in to test them out. And when I took them out, I couldn't hear anything. And I panicked completely. And I think what happened was that I had a build-up of something, wax probably, in my ear. And putting these earplugs in had compressed it into my eardrum.
Wow.
And it made me not completely deaf, but it deafened me, particularly in one ear, but in both ears to a degree, for a good week and a bit. And I panicked completely, because I was like, oh, well, now I'm going to go to this concert and I can't hear anything. This is the opposite result of what I wanted to achieve. So I sort of got these eardrops, and I kept putting drops in my ears, and I was probably fiddling with them way too much because I was panicking. And I made an appointment to have my ears syringed, and which is where they kind of flush it with water, I think, to try and remove any blockages. But you have to have dampened all of the stuff in there for a while beforehand. So I'd been putting these drops in every single day, and my ears hadn't been getting any better, or they'd suddenly clear, and it'd be brilliant, and a minute later it would block up again, and it was really horrible experience. It really put me on edge. And eventually I went for this ear syringing, and I was like, oh, the right ear, I can't hear anything from it at all. That's the one that definitely needs doing. And she looked in it and she said, oh, no, I can't see anything at all in there. There's no blockage at all. And I was like, I can't. And I was almost on the edge of crying. And then she syringed it, and it did clear up completely. So there obviously was something, but maybe it was compacted so deep in that she couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Awful business. And since then, I mean, that experience was horrible. And since then, I've been really, the thought of losing my hearing or getting kind of permanent tinnitus and knowing what the effects of that can be have really, really kind of, it's something I'm really scared of. So this film, definitely, I found it quite intense at times and quite scary to watch, and particularly this opening scene where he's sort of starting to realize what's happened to him, and he's starting to deal with it. And then so he leaves the pharmacist and he goes to see this doctor, where he has a hearing test done, and the doctor comes back to him and says, basically you're hearing what does he say, 29% of everything that is being said to him, sort of thing. Like he's got
really
quite
low.
severe hearing loss at this point. And the doctor tries to make him realise this isn't going to come back. This is how your hearing is now, and the thing you need to do is protect what you've got left.
Yeah, and
so
stay in a
what
quiet
does he?
place.
Yeah. So what does he immediately do?
Yeah, he does a concert, like a really loud one, and at the concert his hearing completely gets busted.
Yeah,
like
the effect is like immediate in terms of like
because
he
the doctor
immediately
says
like
to him that he has
suffers.
to be in a quiet room, and instead he goes to like this like tiny gig space playing metal music, and it's not gonna help. He even has the earphones in, so but in the first scene though he hasn't got earphones. I'm like, you need to wear earphones because drama friends I have, it's a necessity, and he probably has them but he's never worn them, so it doesn't really explain that, but it's part of the film.
Well, he probably just kind of it's not explained specifically, but I imagine because it's a bit like when I have worn these earplugs to concerts, I'm always like, it's just not as good as just hearing it. So he's probably just like that and has been a bit immature about it in the past. Maybe is the impression I get of the character, because he very much just doesn't want to. I think it's a matter of him immediately not being able to accept this idea that, because to most people it would be quite a severe impact on their life, but to him it would require a complete change in his life to live with this.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to accept it immediately. So he goes to play this concert. It destroys the rest of his hearing. He storms out. He has to tell his girlfriend everything, and she immediately says she doesn't want to. They can't perform anymore. She rings. You find out that he's an addict. She rings his Narcotics Anonymous sponsor, who finds him a place at a house for death recovering addicts, run by this guy called
Joe.
Yeah. Who is an alcoholic who lost his hearing in the Vietnam War and now runs this place to help people who have lost their hearing kind of accept it and learn to live with it. And very much sees it as not being a handicap or a disability, but just as a thing to live with and understand.
Absolutely.
And sort of explains this to Ruben, who ends up staying there. And then that's kind of, this is sort of, once he gets to this community, and Lou has to leave, Lou's not allowed to stay. So she leaves the movie at this point.
Yeah.
And we'll come to this in trivia, but they filmed the movie entirely chronologically. So the actress herself left the set at this point, pretty much. Yeah. Which is interesting. And the bulk of the film takes place.
They really depend on each other, these two. Like, her leaving is not anything like, it's not just like, okay, she's gonna leave. They are codependent on each other, and so when she leaves, it's heartbreaking. Yeah, for both of them, because I think they need to be together. It's not a want, it's a need.
Yeah, absolutely. So
and Lou clearly has got many issues, not just Ruben. Well, from the beginning of the film, that maybe she has had some mental health issues in the past. Yeah.
She has found support in Ruben in the same way that he's found support in her, and they like you say, they are codependent. So then, so this is sort of the bulk of the film, isn't it? When he's living in this sort of place. Yeah. And I think in this section, most of the actors, other than Riz Ahmed, are people from the deaf community, is my understanding. The guy who plays Joe isn't deaf, but he's a child of deaf people. I think both his parents were deaf. Mm-hmm. And it is true that he was in the Vietnam War and stuff like that. So he kind of, he's not a famous actor. I didn't necessarily recognise him from anything.
No, but he's definitely
really
incredible.
Yeah,
It
because he
really,
kind of, you can tell that when what he's talking about, he completely believes in.
yeah.
One thing we should mention is when the doctor was talking to him, they mentioned that it's possible to get cochlear implants
Mm.
to kind of get around hearing loss, but it's a big surgery that's very expensive. It costs $40,000 to $80,000, and the doctor tells him that it's not covered by insurance. But this is sort of one of the things that when he's at this retreat, Ruben is sort of hanging on to this idea that he can get this surgery and it will fix his hearing and he'll be fine.
Yeah. And he'll be able to get back to with Lou and back to their normal lives. I think that's his goal at the end.
Yeah.
Like that, when he's at this retreat, his goal is to go back to his life on the road with Lou, because you know, and he thinks that is the solution, or the what makes him happy.
Yeah,
and
while he's
would
there,
make her happy as well.
Yes, yeah, that's quite key, isn't it? That he thinks that that's what will make the pair of them happy, is to be reunited and do what they were doing again.
Yeah.
And so while he's at this place, you can tell at the start, he's having dinner. They're all talking very fluently in ASL, American Sign Language, and he doesn't know it. And he kind of, you can tell he's quite frustrated.
Yeah.
And he's struggling to accept it and fit in. And then, of course, as it goes on, he's introduced to a teacher and her class, a teacher who is deaf, and she teaches a class of deaf children, and he starts to kind of bond with them and work with them, and you see him going to lessons to learn American Sign Language, and you see him getting better at that. And very gradually, without really there being a clear turning point, he starts to fit in, accept his place there, and be a productive part of the community. There's a great scene where he's trying to fix the roof, and Joe comes to him and takes him away and says, "You don't need to fix anything. Like, there's nothing here for you to fix. This is a place for you to kind of not fix yourself necessarily, but to be able to accept yourself and work towards being happier with yourself. You don't need to fix other things." And then so it shows him then, working towards that more. There's this whole thing where he has to sit in a room and write and try and be at peace. He starts to, there's a great scene where he takes one of these children from the class that he's working with outside, and they're sitting on a slide, and he starts to drum on this slide, and the kid's drumming back to him. And then he obviously has the idea of teaching them to drum, because that's the thing about, you can still feel the vibrations and all of these things. It's not necessarily... So he kind of... Then it shows him teaching them how to drum and doing drumming lessons with the children and playing with them and really kind of getting into it. And then it's really almost heartbreaking, because it feels like he's accepted it and it feels like he's found his place and he's going to be happy. Yeah. But then there's one day where he logs onto the computer in this place and he looks up their website and sees a video of Lou experimenting with her own new music in Paris, because I didn't realise it until fairly late on that she's meant to be French, or that she's from France.
Yeah, she's from France, but I think her parents broke up and she lived in America for a very long time.
Yeah. So, but now she's back in Paris, and he kind of, I think he has just this panic at this point that she's moving on without him, and that he's going to be lost, and kind of loses sight a bit of what he's found himself. He there could be videos on there of the things he's been doing. Like, he's equally been finding his way, but he loses sight of that completely, has a panic and starts selling everything, sells the RV, sells everything in it, to try and make the money to have this operation. And then he goes and he has this cochlear implant put in. He returns to Joe, tells Joe what he's done, and asks, there's 4 weeks where he has to live with it before it can be turned on. So he asks if he can carry on staying it there for the 4 weeks. And
one of the
Joe
most
says
heartbreaking
no.
scenes in the film.
Yeah.
Because
you can tell that it breaks Joe's heart to say no, but that he has to stick to his ideals. And his ideals are that deafness is not a disability and not a handicap, and Ruben has kind of gone against that by having this operation, and Joe asks him to leave, and it is really upsetting and heartbreaking. And then
he's not really an actor, but he's clearly distraught by his decision,
Yeah, the bit where Ruben walks away, because with Riz Ahmed in this movie, so much of it is internal. There's
Yeah.
there's a handful of scenes where he really loses it and breaks down and gets angry, but like in this scene and a lot of
Yeah.
other scenes, he keeps it very, very internal, and he just
Yeah.
says, right, okay, and walks away.
Yeah.
But then you see that Joe is really heartbroken by it and is crying, and
And
it's it's touching scene.
Because you know, as a viewer, you go, Joe, let him stay. It's not going to cost you anything to let him stay, but
Yeah.
he's doing the right thing to let him go, and it's just like no, and it's a heartbreaking scene.
Yeah. And interestingly, it doesn't show us the next 4 weeks. It cuts immediately to him having his implants turned on.
Yeah.
Which again is I guess within the context of the film, we'll talk about this more in the review section and stuff about what I think about this. But in the context of the film, the way the film is portraying it is quite a sort of an upsetting scene in the immediacy of it, because he has this implant turned on, and he immediately, his face lights up because he can hear something again, but then very quickly he realizes that what he's hearing is not what he is used to as hearing.
Yeah.
And the doctor works through a few different settings on the device with him and finds the one that's closest to what he kind of can hear.
Yeah.
But again, you can hear presumably what it sounds like to have this implant activated, and it sounds like a real kind of bed of electronic noise, and then occasionally something recognizable will kind of rise out of it, but still have this kind of electronic sound attached to it, which is like she's talking to him and you can hear the words, you can understand the words she's saying, but it's through this bed of constant kind of white noise electronics, which is interesting. But he sticks with it and leaves and heads to France to meet up with Lou, which is what he's been, which is why he's done all of this. So he goes to France and goes to her house, where we find out that she is from money.
Lots of money.
Yes, lots of money. We meet her dad, Richard, played by a really famous actor. Do you know this guy?
Mathieu Amalric.
Mathieu Amalric. Most well known to people, I think, for playing the lead in The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, where he is completely paralysed and writes his biography with his... I can't remember how he controls it now. I haven't seen that film, but I know about it.
No, I've not seen that one. He had a familiar face. He's going to be in The French Dispatch, which is pretty exciting.
I think he's been in another Wes Anderson film.
Has he? The Grand Budapest Hotel. Oh yeah, that's where I know him from. And I think that's it that I've seen him before.
I know him best as a Bond villain.
Which one?
One of the worst Bond films, Quantum of Solace.
Okay.
Daniel Craig's second film. It was a big kind of misfire. He plays a guy, a kind of businessman who wants to control Bulgaria's water supply or something like that. It's not the most.
Have I seen it?
It's not the most. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
It's not the most terrifying Bond plan ever. But yeah, he plays Dominic Green. There's a great bit where he fights Daniel Craig with an axe. That's pretty cool, and I think Daniel Craig ends up like planting the axe into his foot in a pretty gnarly way. But it's not a great one. But he popped up in this movie, and I was like, oh, it's the guy from Quantum of Solace. Great. Anyway, I think he's quite a famous actor in France. I think he's very respected in his homeland, and he's good. So he plays Richard, Lou's father. Ruben turns up, and him and Lou kind of have a talk. Then Lou turns up, and she has cut her hair. I had to check and make sure it wasn't a different actress. She looks completely different when she returns to the film.
It's amazing the transformation that she made.
Yeah, it really is. It's crazy. And he's shaved his head at this point, so he looks really different as well. They look like they're not in sync anymore in the way they are at the start of the film. They've changed physically and, emotionally as well, which is interesting. So they kind of reconnect a bit. They clearly still love each other and care about each other. She has this party. He turns up to this party, and like again, he enters this party, and it's from his perspective, and you're hearing what he's hearing, and he's just hearing this absolute kind of mayhem of noise.
Yeah.
And it's impossible, and I guess it's because your ears naturally do an amazing job of picking out the sounds you want to hear and ignoring the sounds you don't hear, whereas what these implants are doing they are just translating all of the environmental noise around him and putting it into his head. And it's really quite intense as he walks through this party, and somebody tries to have a conversation with him and he really can't hear what they're saying, and he does his best. And then it cuts to Richard, the dad, is giving a speech, and he asks Lou to sing a song with him, and they sing this song together. And again, you're hearing it from his perspective, and I think this is the bit of the movie where he really starts to realise that there's a problem when she's singing clearly this beautiful song, and he can hear that she's singing, but to him he can't hear the beauty of the music in the way that he would want to, I guess. I think after that, there's one more scene where they're together, and he says that she saved him, she says that he saved her, but he also sees, I think, that she's not harming herself anymore like she was earlier in the film.
Yeah, and like him talking to her about going back on the road, although she doesn't say no, her body physically reacts to that, and she starts scratching herself, and so he realizes that maybe the life on the road again is not really something that she wants to do, and I think he realizes that they're not meant to carry on the same road.
It's like in Friends, where Richard tells Monica that he'll have a baby with her if he has to stay with her, but she can tell he doesn't really want to have a baby with her. He just wants to stay with her. So they break up.
Okay. Why are you quoting Friends?
Because I've been watching a lot of Friends.
Ah, have you? Amazing.
Yeah, I just watched that episode.
Oh, it's so good.
It is like that though, right? Where two people still love each other, want to stay together, but
yeah, like I'm sure if he was a selfish man, he would say he wouldn't pay attention to that, but he does pay attention to that.
Yeah, he makes the mature choice like Monica does and says, this can't work. Or he doesn't say this can't work. They go to bed, and in the morning he gets up early, gets all his stuff, and leaves. And he walks down the street. Again, it's from his perspective. The sound is everywhere. And he hears this church bell ringing, and it is just this sort of dissonant mess of noise in his ear. So he takes his implants out, and the film goes completely silent, and then he looks up and seems peaceful, and that's the end of the movie. Yeah. So that's Sound of Metal. That's the journey that Ruben goes on in that film. So what did you think of Riz Ahmed in this movie?
He's really, really good in this film. He's I think he's excellent. I only seen him in not very many things. I saw him in Four Lions and but like you're immersed in him. You suffer for him, you get annoyed for him. Like he's really engaging and natural as an actor. Like any of his reactions or how he did things is felt really thought about and natural. I think he's great in this film. Really believable, which extremely believable, and the amount of work that he put to, he learned how to play the drums, and you can see it. He learned ASL, and you can see it. You can see that he's. You don't find out that Ruben is an addict until a while into the film, and then but there's something about him that there's been a sufferance before. Like he's really studied the character and really portrayed this character, and you see when he's genuinely happy at one point in the center or in the house in the community, and he's established himself and he's doing his things, and he looks genuinely happy. Uh,
He designs a tattoo for someone, doesn't he? And
yeah,
he's teaching the kids the drums,
yeah,
and he's like really being a productive part. And Joe offers him a job effectively to stay
yeah,
there.
and I just think I don't know, but it's I think he's great in this film. I think he's really, really good. What did you think of
Yeah.
him?
Yeah, a lot of the similar things to what you said. You can tell he really
Mm.
put a lot of effort into, putting through a good performance. The drums,
Yeah.
learning the drums, learning ASL, all of these things. He's been brilliant and stuff before. Like you said, I watched him in Four Lions. I think that was the first thing that most
Yeah.
people saw him in, and he's really good in Four Lions. He's kind of that movie's a comedy, but he is the emotional center of the film. There's a scene in that where he goes to see his wife in hospital to say
Yeah.
goodbye to her, and it's really heartbreaking because he's so good at doing pulling off emotional moments like that. He's also been he plays the villain in Venom, the Tom Hardy comic book film, and he's like chewing the scenery in that film and stuff. So he can do kind of big blockbuster films as well, but in this he's really putting a lot of effort into giving an amazing performance, and he really, really does. And like I said before, I think his character is very internal, has a lot of emotion and anger inside him, but doesn't let it come out of him too much. You can tell, particularly in that scene where he's in the pharmacy and the guy's on the phone, you can tell how frustrated and angry he is, and how he does just want to sort of lose it a bit, but he knows that he can't because it won't get him anywhere, and it's not what he does. But you can really sense the frustration coming through, and then when he's doing that hearing test and he can't get the words, and just occasionally he'll just like move his head and move his face, and you can tell how he does so much emotion in those little movements. He does a really good job in this film. You can definitely see why he had so many awards nominations and things. What about Olivia Cook?
She was amazing as well. She was great. Even if just the hair and the eyebrows changed, like she completely seemed like a different human when she was with him in the RV and when she's in Paris. I don't think I've ever seen anything with her before. And I think
Oh, she was in Ready Player One. It's a Steven Spielberg film, Ready Player One. It's not very good, and she's not great in it. She's better in
I
this.
think a bit like Riz Ahmed. She just they had great chemistry, I think, and you could easily see that they loved each other, but they're also codependent. Like to create that kind of dynamic in a couple of actors, I think it could be quite hard because it's a very fine line. And I think they managed it really well because although there was a lot of love, there was also a lot of like, I need to be with you because something bad might happen if I'm not with you.
Yeah.
And they did it perfectly well. I think because so at one point I was thinking, are they actually together? Because they didn't seem to kind of match.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
when she had to help him, she like stepped up, and I don't know. I just I think they're both great.
And when she returns to the film at the end in the final act, like I said, I had to check him. She does such a good job of portraying a different person, somebody who's changed a lot in the time that they've been apart. Because you've seen his change, you've seen everything he's been through, but off screen, she will have been through her own journey of working out how to live apart from him. And she seems like a different person, and it's a really impressive job. No, I think she's good in it. Side recommendation: there's a film called Thoroughbreds. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
So that stars her and Anya Taylor-Joy, and it's a very good film.
Okay.
So you should watch it. You should check
I'm
that
in
out.
it. Yes, baby.
So then we've got, we'll just talk about a couple more. Paul Raci, or Paul Raci, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, as Joe.
Amazing.
Again, not a professional actor necessarily. Apparently a musician, performs in bands that perform in American Sign Language, which is interesting.
He's
really
great
good, right?
He's great in it. Like, you would assume that he's an actor. He's great in it. He's a great person outside of being filmed, so I like him even more. I
Yeah,
think he's
yeah.
just, he's just a great person. So he's a great in the film, and I think probably he's great in the film because he believed in what he was portraying.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, he's great in the movie. Like everything you said is true. He's really, really good. Quite similar in some ways to Nomadland in that kind of casting
Yeah.
people who are kind of
Definitely.
associated with the community being depicted on screen,
Mm.
which is great. Who else does Wikipedia list as being in the cast? We've got Lauren Ridloff as Diane, the teacher that helps Ruben to learn sign language.
Yeah, I really liked her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's not in it loads, is she? But she's great when she's in it. She seems friendly and welcoming, which is how a teacher should be.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to be in her class.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, she's a teacher that I would happily have. Then we got Matthew Amalric as Richard, the dad.
The dad is a French man.
Yeah, he does what he needs to do.
He does what he does. He's they got a good guy to play a rich French man. I think he's very, very well cast.
Yeah, and I take slight issue with Wikipedia here because the last person Wikipedia list has been in the cast, not the lady that he bonds with and makes the tattoo for in the shelter. She doesn't get a cast listing on Wikipedia.
What?
But Michael Tao, who plays the pharmacist at the start of the film, he's the last named actor on Wikipedia.
No. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
He's good. He's perfectly good in his one scene.
Yeah, but I think the
I want to find out who that actress is who
the person that he bonds with in the center.
Yeah, because she's really good, I think.
In the shelter. Like
Chelsea Lee. Chelsea Lee is the name of that actress.
Yeah.
Plays Jen.
And there's some funny scenes with her. There's some really fun scenes.
When they're designing that tattoo together. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's good in it, man. I think she should have more recognition. So that's our casting. So let's get to our thoughts. I'll just sort of review. What overall, how are you reviewing this? What's your thought?
First of all, unexpected. I was not expecting it to be like that. When you think about a film about somebody going deaf, you imagine just because of the preconception that we have or how we've been brought up with films, like more tragedy, I'm going deaf. But this is just, I think, the normal reaction of somebody going deaf. You would just have to deal with it because it's not a straight up tragedy. It's just like, how am I going to deal with this? And I think I liked the kind of simplicity of it, and the fact that it's so human as well. I really like that. I think it's a really amazing film. I really, really enjoyed it. The humanity in it, and a bit like what we talked about in Nomadland. It's just this beautiful humanity where people kind of want to help each other, and not having necessarily all the information doesn't matter, because we're dealing with the human that we have in front of us now. For example, the 4 weeks where you don't see him, or you don't know what happens, and I think it's not really a bad thing, I think. And the fact that we see Lou has grown without see her growing, I think that was just how, because the film is in Ruben's perspective, and I think that's something that it's kind of a natural way of seeing things. The fact that it goes in chronological order gives it a sense of evolution, because you can see him changing as the film goes on, but because he changes, you can see that he's getting better sign language. You can see maybe things that maybe in a film that was not made chronologically, maybe the changes wouldn't be so natural, I think.
Yeah.
And it's just a really beautiful film. And the ending for me is just amazing, when it's just silent.
Yeah.
And I think it could have is ended in a perfect way. And we don't know where he's going to go. We don't know where he's going to do. We don't know anything. But the film is finished. That's it. Life will go on, and that's it. So I really enjoyed it. I would give it a 5 out of 5. 5 out of
Wow.
5. Yeah. Yeah. But, I enjoy these kind of, human films.
Yeah.
And I like human films.
So yeah, I liked it quite a lot. I think it's a film that is depicting. It's like a character study depicting this guy adjusting to a new way of living and a new sort of kind of position in life. I think it's amazing. I think that Riz Ahmed does do such a fantastic job in this film of portraying that change. And like you said, the way it's shot chronologically means that there isn't like one specific scene where suddenly he's learned to accept it and live with it. It kind of happens over the course of a few moments and a few scenes, and suddenly you realise that you've seen him grow and change, and he's a different person, and that feels so natural in the movie.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant. I think that's great, and like you say, the ending is brilliant. I love the way he just sort of takes those implants out, and the sound, like the sound editing in this film is so good. It's so clever at the start to show him making breakfast and have all those sounds quite amplified on the film soundtrack, and then when he does it again and you aren't hearing them, it really makes it kind of stand out, and you kind of can really experience that from his perspective, which is brilliant. I think there were some slight issues around the portrayal of deafness from what I've read about it. Have you read any of this?
No.
So, like, to start early on, when the doctor tells him that cochlear implants aren't covered by insurance, that's not true. They're covered by most insurance companies in America.
Okay.
Because they are considered a legitimate treatment for deafness, if you see what I mean.
But has he got insurance though? Like, I assume.
Well, that's the thing. The movie never says whether or not he has insurance, but just the film says that they're not covered by insurance.
Yeah.
That's the stance the film takes, and it's just inaccurate,
Okay.
which is an odd thing to me, because they could have made a point of, like you say, they could have said they're covered by insurance. Oh, I don't have insurance, so I'd have to pay. Like it's odd that it takes that shortcut, but that's kind of not too bad. But then again, there's issues around it. Never like hearing aids don't exist in the world of this film. It sort of seems to imply that it's either cochlear implants or nothing. Whereas it doesn't sort of even discuss the possibility of hearing aids. And then,
but hasn't his hearing been damaged enough?
That first time he goes, potentially not, but it could at least. It could have been tried as a treatment. Surely, is it that bad? But then, I think the thing that really I'm not sure about is that the cochlear implants. Apparently, it does sound like that when you first turn them on, but you kind of have to get trained, and it takes months in how to use them, and you can acclimatize them. And I read a sort of a, I don't know how to describe it, a post somewhere from someone who has one in one ear but not in the other ear, and it did take them ages to kind of train that ear to sound like the other ear, but they did get there. And I think there are many people who live with these implants, and it seems to imply, I guess the film takes a very specific stance on this idea that you should live if you. And I'm a fully hearing able person. I'm maybe not the person to make this criticism, but I was reading things like this online, and it was just interesting. Some people had issues with the stance it takes, whereby you shouldn't have any of this treatment, and you should just learn to live with it and be part of that community.
I didn't see it that way though. I like, the thing is that it doesn't work. It will take time to get used to, and we all know that. I know, because your ears have to get used to the new implants. Your ear have to get used to even of other things in your ear. And he didn't have time, because he had them 4 weeks time, and then he switched them on, and then he wanted to go to Paris. So we don't know what happens next. Like, he'll get used to it. But at that moment, it wasn't working out, and he was not thinking straight. But I saw it, in my opinion, more of a, you need to find, and that's exactly I think that's what also Joe, the guy at the shelter, that you don't necessarily going to find happiness by looking at things outside, but try, because these implants are not going to change your life into any better. You're still going to be deaf. Like, that's it. So I think, in my opinion, it was more like, accept yourself, accept that it's not a disability, accept that you can do things for it, and then you can do the implants. But the implants are not necessarily going to make your life any better.
No, but I think the way the film portrays them is very much that they don't work.
Well, I guess, but it takes, like, for some reason I knew it took time for those implants, because your brain has to get used to them. I don't know why I knew that. So I know that it was going to get better at some point with training. I don't know where I got it from, but I knew that. And so I just assumed that maybe after the film, in his life, we don't know what's going to happen. He's going to start living with that. And
no, we don't know what's going to
to
happen, but
use
it
them.
definitely feels like when the doctor turns it on and he kind of isn't able to hear immediately. The doctor just seems to kind of go, oh well, you just got to live. Like, they don't say, oh, we'll come back, once a week and we'll go through these different. Do you know? Like, it does seem to just sort of go, oh well, it's not great, so live with it.
Yeah.
But it's not a major criticism. Like, it doesn't make me dislike the film overall.
Yeah.
I just think that it could have slightly more nuance in how it portrays his deafness, whereas it does seem to kind of very much immediately take this thing of like, right, well, you're completely deaf and there's no point trying to find a medical solution to it. You just have to live with it. But also, I felt like the movie could have been 10 minutes shorter, so I don't know if I want to add anything to it. But I don't know. I like you said, you give it 5 out of 5. I think I gave it. Let me check what I gave it on letterboxd. Yeah, 4. So I 4 out of 5, which I think it is a brilliant film. But got a couple of small issues with it. So, do you have any trivia to share?
Trivia time. Well, we talked about Paul Raci not being deaf, but being had his parents were deaf, and so he's bilingual in English and ASL. Oh well, Riz Ahmed actually wore, in certain scenes, noise cancelling earplugs, but like actual auditory blockers. You couldn't hear anything.
But did he end up taking those out? I think I read.
Yeah. A lot of the cast were actually hired from the deaf community, which I think is really good.
Yes, again, similar to Nomadland, portraying that community, they wanted to use, let people from that community be portrayed themselves, which I think is good.
Yeah. The film is shot in chronological order, which means that every, the first shot is the first shot they shot, and then the last shot is the last shot that's being shot. So, that I thought that was really good. Adds to the growth. And then, Dakota Johnson was supposed to be the main actress, was supposed to play Lou, but I'm very glad that she didn't.
Yeah.
No, nothing against Dakota Johnson. I just feel like Lou was so perfect that I couldn't imagine any other actress doing what she did.
Yeah, she was. I think she does a really brilliant job in it. And I'd forgotten that I'd seen her in that film Thoroughbreds. That really is a great film. I watched that twice in one day when I saw that for the first time. So if anyone has watched Sound of Metal and would like some more Olivia Cooke, a slightly lesser known film, Thoroughbreds is worth checking out. And Anya Taylor-Joy is great in it as well.
Yeah. And I think that's the most interesting trivia I found. Have you found any other trivia?
Just that Riz Ahmed genuinely shaved his head for the film, which is
did he?
interesting. Yeah, apparently that was a real scene where he shaves his head.
Oh, I really, I know not every film can be perfect, but I thought it was good. I thought it was a really good film.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I liked it a lot.
And definitely recommend it to watch.
Oh yeah, if anyone's listening, it's on Amazon Prime Video in pretty much every country, I think. So if you have access to that, definitely give it a watch, check it out. It's a good time. It's a good film.
Yeah, and also the title. The title is deceiving, I think.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, because I think Sound of Metal could be metal, like the band, but also what they implanted to him. I think,
Yeah, what metal? Like copper, lead, aluminium. Where's the metal? It's called Sound of Metal, and there's no metal making sound in it. It's ridiculous.
What?
It's like if you named a film about someone smelling and then they didn't smell at any point in the film. It just doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. So, actually, 1 out of 5 for Sound of Metal.
Do you mean her smell? Oh, goodness. Well, that was a stupid film. That was a ridiculous film. No shade. No shade. Not my cup of tea. If you want to watch her smell and enjoy it, please enjoy it. There's no hate here. Just opinions.
Sure, yeah.
No, but I mean the sound of metal. The sound of metal could be sound of music, like the metal music, but also is the sound that he hears, and is all this like clang, 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 clang. And then at the end, like the film starts with him playing the drums and being really intense, and the ending is him. There's the bell singing, and that's the sound of metal as well, and it's disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I think, it could be any sound of metal. There's definitely
Sure.
sound. There's no smell.
Silver, gold,
You idiot.
zinc.
Zinc, the sound of zinc.
Yeah, it should have been called The Sound of Zinc.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, definitely got the film.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. Right. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our second special deep dive episode on The Sound of Metal. Please let us know if you give it a watch and what you think about it.
Yes,
We'd love
please,
to hear
give us a
your
review.
thoughts. Yeah, give us a review. And we'll be back next week with another top 5.
Yes.
And we'll also discuss our homework. I'll be discussing Röyksopp, and Alex will be discussing the band I told her to listen to, which was... Go on.
It was.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Do you remember?
No, I don't. Do you remember?
No, but I remembered my band because I've listened to them.
I listened to them too.
What,
To my
Röyksopp?
band. Yeah. What did you tell
Misty's
me to
Big
listen-
Adventure.
Misty's Big Adventure. Yeah. Yeah. Great times. Can't wait to talk about it next week. And
Good
what's our
stuff.
top 5 next week?
Our top 5 for next week is going to be coming of age films.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
I don't know
lots
why I'm
of,
saying yeah, because it's going to be hard to choose 5, but I'm excited.
It is going to be hard to choose 5. There's too many of those sort of American high school comedies. But it's broad. So there can be more. I can tell you right now, The Breakfast Club is not going to be on my list because that movie is terrible. So.
But I keep saying it's a terrible movie with an iconic ending. Everybody knows the song. Everybody knows the pose. Come on, come on. Like, forever people will remember that film.
Because of Judd Nelson at the end, flinging his fist into the air.
Yeah.
That bit's good. The preceding hour and 40 minutes or whatever. Get out of here with your
Get out of
normative
here.
nonsense. Right. That's been wonderful. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining us. Please return next week. I love you very much. Bye.
Bye.